August of right now. Wilder, Fury 2, here we go.
In light of this weekend's events, how everything broke down in unison with what the talk was before the fight and what the talk still is after the fight. Now that Chocolatito is the new WBA champion, unifications are in order. And the next logical fight, the next logical step for Chocolatito is a unification match with his old adversary, the current reigning WBC Ring Magazine and lineal super flyweight champion, Juan Francisco Estrada. El Gallo! We all know that these guys have seen each other before in the squared circle, approximately 7 or 8 years ago in 2012. And there are questions because given the gap in time between then and now, it's safe to say that this is not the Chocolatito of 2012 any more than this is the Juan Francisco Estrada of 2012. So how does a rematch play out 7 or 8 years later when, maybe Father Time was kinder to one guy than the other? Maybe one guy has continued to improve where another guy has plateaued. Maybe what was working for you then when you were a younger guy may not be working for you here today in 2020. It's a situation to where at minimum the inference you can make is that there are no foregone conclusions. Just because Chocolatito beat Juan Francisco Estrada before doesn't necessarily mean he's going to do it again. We don't know that. Is it a situation like the Roy Levesta Jones Jr. versus Bernard Hopkins situation to where both guys locked horns 2 times in their pro careers? However, the first fight and the subsequent second fight were many, many, many years apart. The first fight took place in 1993, whereas the second fight didn't go down until 2010. Ladies and gentlemen, that's well over a decade between the first fight and the second fight, and it's safe to say that a lot had happened from the first fight to the second fight. Roy Jones Jr. was not the fighter in 2010 that he was in 1993. Does that question apply here? Because Chocolatito beat Juan Francisco Estrada back in 2012, but we're in 2020.
Yeah.
A lot has changed, a lot has happened. Is it that kind of situation, or is it a situation that you can more or less equate to the Patriots and the Giants in the NFL, to where historically the Patriots are a better team, but for some reason or another, the Giants just had their number both times in those 2 Super Bowls. Is it that kind of a situation to where even though a lot of time has passed, Chocolatito knows how to beat Juan? He's just got what it takes to do it. And that doesn't make Juan a bad fighter.
It doesn't.
It's just one of those kinds of situations. Is it something like that? We really won't get the answers until both guys lock horns.
In a rematch.
There are things working for and against both of these fighters. One could argue that Juan Francisco Estrada has significantly improved from the time that he fought Chocolatito all those years ago.
Yeah.
There's that. But what's working against Juan is that, he hasn't been in action since that Dwayne Beeman fight. And if he takes on Chocolatito next, he will be coming off a hand injury. He was supposed to be in action a couple of weeks ago, a couple of months ago. And that hand injury prevented that from happening. So if he goes right into a Chocolatito fight at this point, he will be coming right off an injury.
Ain't good.
Usually in those situations, you take an easy one, a gimme fight.
That's how it usually goes.
Juan hasn't been in action since August of last year, you understand. That's roughly 6 or 7 months that Juan has been out of action. And if they don't make this fight in a timely fashion, if the negotiations drag on and drag out, quite possibly it could be a year's time before Juan fights Roman Gonzalez for a second time. That the night of the fight, it could be upwards of 8, 9, maybe even 12 months since Juan has thrown a punch at anybody. That's if this fight doesn't get made in a timely fashion. If it does, well, I think that bodes a little better for Juan, who will have been out of the ring several months and will be coming right off an injury. That does kind of favor Chocolatito, although Chocolatito, one does have to question if he really is the Chocolatito of old. I mean, he looked sensational against Khalid Yafai, but Khalid has never competed at the level of Chocolatito, of Juan Francisco Estrada, Sorun Visay, or Carlos Cuadras. So, credit to Chocolatito for getting the job done. I felt that he could, and he did. But dealing with Khalid is not the same thing as dealing with Juan, especially these days. Juan is the authority in the super flyweight division, okay? He is the Ring Magazine lineal and WBC champion. Things have changed, and in some ways, the tables have turned. It's a sensational fight. I want to see it. I'd love to see a second outing of these two guys, because at the end of the day, they are both reigning world champions. They are both still competing at that level. And there's a lot at stake here. Chocolatito, he's a very accomplished guy. He is. He's got some credible scalps on his resume. He's been a world champion in 4 weight classes, unseated 4 active reigning champions. But one of the few things he hasn't done in his stellar career is unify world titles. For a guy with as many pro fights as Chocolatito, something to the tune of 50 or 51 total, there's not a lot left to do but unify. You're already very accomplished. At this point, these are the kinds of fights that you need to be having for these kinds of paydays. The Roman Gonzalez versus Khalid Yafai fight, how it was orchestrated, it was a one-off for Choco. He didn't make a multi-fight commitment to Matchroom and DAZN at that time. But if he wants that Juan Francisco Estrada rematch, he is in the right place. Hearn, Matchroom, the people over there at DAZN, they've got the kind of money, they've got the deep kind of pockets to compensate the fighters for the fight. So I think it's an entirely doable fight, and the ball is in Juan Francisco Estrada's court now, as far as does he want to go through with it, does he want the rematch? In all honesty, I think he does. I think it makes just as much sense for Juan as it does for Chocolatito. So all we can do now is play the waiting game, see what develops, see how the cookie crumbles, and see if 2020 will deliver us the rematch between Roman Gonzalez and Juan Francisco Estrada. Then I've got to tell you that a fight with two fighters as accomplished as Chocolatito and Juan Francisco Estrada, a fight between two fighters featured on the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list would have implications moving forward for the winner and for the loser. The loser would be bumped off, and a vacant slot would thereby be made available for yet another potential pound-for-pound hopeful to occupy. Yet another fight that's being tabbed for the near future that could have implications on this list is a potential matchup between Mikey Garcia, who was in action this past weekend, and the current reigning WBA welterweight champion, Manny Pacquiao. A fight they're looking to make somewhere in Saudi Arabia. And Manny's movements as of late have been very strange. Because, there's all kinds of rumors circulating that he does have at least one more fight with the PBC, and then, he'll be able to go on and do whatever he wants, or he doesn't have any actual agreement that would so hinder him from inking a deal with another promotional outfit. We know that very recently, Manny Pacquiao inked some kind of a commitment, some kind of deal with Paradigm.
Who are they?
Paradigm Sports Management that handles the career of the very popular UFC fighter Conor McGregor. And this move by Manny was widely interpreted as a segue to what could be a crossover fight. A crossover fight, how, Mayweather versus McGregor was a crossover fight. And the fact that Manny signed this deal, and it gives off the appearance that he's looking to do these things, it bears a question as far as, okay, so what's he going to be doing with the PBC moving forward if he's going to be doing anything with the PBC moving forward? I don't got to tell you that there's more money in a McGregor crossover fight than any fight that the PBC can offer Manny.
You already know.
That is if it comes off. That is if they mean to make it. But at the same time, we're still hearing rumors, persistent rumors, of Manny Pacquiao going to Saudi Arabia and locking horns with the likes of a Mikey Garcia. And I don't gotta tell you that the Saudis have got deep pockets, and they can make it happen.
Motherfucking yeah.
Manny's still sticking around at this age. It's for the paydays. And no Saudis, they've got the kind of money to get him those paydays. That kind of guaranteed money. The kind of money to where you ain't gotta worry about somebody's pay-per-view upside to make some coin, okay? They've got it. If you ask me which one of those fights I think is more likely to come off, given the circumstances, I think it's the Mikey Garcia fight. I do. I think that while there's more money in a Conor McGregor crossover fight, it may take more time to make than Manny's got. I mean, that is a possibility. Perhaps he signed with Paradigm and walked into whatever he did walk into as a means to keep the door open so that if they want to make it happen, they can. But I'm not sure they're actually moving forward with that. And the more persistent rumors, the more persistent news is news of Manny going to Saudi Arabia for a potential fight with Mikey Garcia. I've said it many times before that I think this fight is a genuine possibility because you've got to look at this, how many people are looking at this. We're looking at a guy in Mikey Garcia who, yes, he might be the younger fighter in the fight, but he's not necessarily the bigger fighter in the fight.
Not really.
He's not the more athletic guy. I'd have to say that Manny's actually more athletic, even now at 40. He's the more athletic guy, the more fleet of foot guy, the guy who fights with a bounce.
Pep in his step.
More so than Mikey Garcia. Mikey doesn't have the fastest feet or the fastest hands. He doesn't throw punches in bunches. He's not a physical fighter in that way. A physical fighter that can expose an older fighter's age. Nah, Mikey's not a rough and tumble kind of guy. He hits plenty hard, and he's plenty skilled, but he's judicious. He's a sharpshooter.
Mm-hmm.
He's economic by nature. You know, that's his characteristic. So for Manny, that actually bodes kind of well that I may not even get into a firefight with this guy. The majority of the action might be me pressing forward against this guy. Even now, Manny Pacquiao might actually be the bigger puncher between himself and Mikey. Was Manny's got more experience over a better quality of competition at this weight. I mean, that really does go without saying, you know.
Yeah.
What's Mikey done at 147 that proves otherwise? What, you knocked down Jesse Vargas, so all of a sudden you're supposed to be Felix Trinidad or somebody? I don't think so, okay? There are a lot of angles, a lot of elements to this potential matchup that could make it an attractive fight for Manny Pacquiao, and you get the Saudi Arabians involved in all the money they've got, and this makes this a feasible option. And in that way, this is the fight that I think is more likely to happen. And because it's more likely to happen, it does have implications on the Ring IQ pound for pound list. If Manny beats Mikey, a lot doesn't change, you know?
Not really.
I mean, Manny's seated where he's seated for two reasons. Everything he's done so far and what he just did against Keith Thurman. It's not just all the fighters he's beaten in the past, but what he's coming off of, that he unseated an undefeated reigning champion, undefeated welterweight champion. So he's still competing at the championship level. You couple that with everything he's done so far, and there ain't a single fighter on this list with the kind of resume that Manny's got. The closest thing is Canelo Alvarez, and even Canelo Alvarez falls short of the kind of fighters that Manny Pacquiao has fought over the years. That's why Manny's seated where he's seated. It's not just what you've done, but also what you're doing. However, if Manny wins a fight against Mikey Garcia, doesn't mean much, doesn't change much. However, if Mikey beats Manny, well, we know how the list works. Manny not being a champion, he won't be eligible for a rank because this list is only for winners and only for champions. You need to be in possession of a world title just to be considered, much less ranked. Rules dictate that in defeating a pound-for-pound fighter, you become one yourself. So that would allow Mikey Garcia to be reintegrated into the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list and potentially secure a top 5 spot. Because lest we forget, Mikey Garcia's taken on a lot of world champions and beaten them. He's only ever actually lost one fight, and he himself has been a champion in 4 weight classes. Let me tell you something. No other organized sport like the sport of boxing has an overabundance of opinionated idiots who offer up little more than anecdotes when trying to make an assessment on a fighter instead of just going by the facts. And the facts as they are, the facts as they stand, that Mikey Garcia has been a champion in 4 weight classes
already,
and he's beaten 5 active reigning world champions. He beat Orlando Salido for the WBO title. He beat Roman Martinez for the WBO title. This is all before either of those guys did anything with Vasyl Lomachenko, yet Vasyl Lomachenko's fans make no light of this, that if you were ranting and raving over Loma knocking out Roman Martinez, why are you dismissing that Mikey beat him first?
Years before.
Beat those two guys. He beat Dejan Zlatijanin, the undefeated Dejan Zlatijanin, for the WBC title, the undefeated Sergey Lipinets for the IBF title, and the undefeated Robert Easter for the IBF title. That's a grand total of 5 active reigning world champions that he pried away belts from, you understand. This, in unison with the number of divisions he's been a champion in, and potentially unseating Manny Pacquiao. Not saying that I think he will or won't so much as if he does, that'll be the 6th world champion he's defeated in what will be the 5th division he's ever fought in. That would make him a 5-division champion. Context is key here, folks. If Mikey can pull this off, once again, not saying he does or doesn't, he's already done enough to be ranked as a pound-for-pound fighter in the top 5. All he's missing is the hardware, the brass ring that he means to win from Manny Pacquiao. We already know that Mikey's receptive to this fight, and I'm sure that Manny obliges him. I'm sure that he's receptive to it too. So if it were to go down in Saudi Arabia, they incentivize an offer to the fighters, the money's right, the time is right. If the fight goes down and Mikey wins the fight, he's back on the list in a considerably cushy spot, I might add. I don't want to hear about your opinions. I don't want to hear about your anecdotes, because these are the facts. The facts by the numbers. The facts themselves are the year marks of excellence, of pound-for-pound elitism. Not how you interpreted a fight, not who you think is better based on your eye tests, because you're a nobody. You think doesn't matter. The only thing that matters in the sport of boxing is who you beat and what you managed to accomplish. Who were they at the time? Were they top 10 fighters, and were they world champions? Were they still competing at the elite level at the time that you fought them? And how many times did you do this? Over how many weight classes? That's what matters, not what the fuck you think about it. Boxing is the only organized sport the way the fans can't simply stick to the goddamn fucking facts. Just stick to the fucking facts, your life becomes that much easier for it. But there are these people that they can't deal with certain realities that go against their beliefs. They may believe that another fighter is better, but until that is proven in some way, shape, or form, what you think about it doesn't fucking matter. So process that and get it through your thick fucking head.